In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 B-tier villain MCU spec books that could become A-tier if we ever see them in the MCU, or see them again in the MCU. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, I wanted to talk about 5 B-tier villain MCU spec books that could become A-tier if we ever see these characters in the movies. Now, I got this idea from my video yesterday when I picked up this book, which is Strange Tales 123, the first appearance of Beetle. And in that video, I was talking about how I love collecting these kind of old vintagey B-tier villains because they're so corny. I just really like it. So that got me thinking about some of these characters and what their potential would be. Like, could they become A-tier characters if we saw them in the MCU? So I was thinking about a bunch of B-tier villains and the ones that, using my best guesses from the slate of MCU movies that are out there, which ones could actually make their way into the movies in a sort of creative and natural way. And a lot of the characters I thought about happen to be tied to the Thunderbolts, because from the speculation that is out there right now with the Black Widow teaser trailers, including General Ross and all those little Easter eggs and rumors, it looks like that we might be getting a version of the Thunderbolts. So these books are characters that have connection to the Thunderbolts in some way. A lot of them are B-tier characters, and who knows, if we see them in the MCU, they could be A-tier. So I'm going to show you my picks of what those books could be. But before I do that, if you guys could drop me a comment or a like, or hit me with a subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Help support the channel, helps me with the algorithm, keeps me motivated. I love talking to you guys, getting the comments and interacting. It's been a lot of fun, so please continue to do that and support me any way you can. All right, so with that being said, let us get into my 5 picks. All right, so first, before that though, let's just make it clear that, all these picks are going to be rooted in the Thunderbolts, and this book right here is The Incredible Hulk 449. A lot of talk about it in the spec community. This book has been definitely somewhat hot on eBay, and I certainly have kept my eye out for a copy, that I felt was a good price. But I didn't want to spec on this one too heavily, because what I think that this book has going against it is that it's not necessarily the first appearances of all these characters. It's definitely the first iteration of the team, but it's also a book that came out in 1997. And what I want to look at is the old sort of silver and bronze age stuff that has the higher potential, because those are older books. There's more scarcity to them. And, I'm looking for that big win. I want to see the books that could be really low economic investments that could pay out nicely with once the movies come out. So for those who are curious though, this is the first appearance of the Thunderbolts, and that is Incredible Hulk 449. I have a couple honorable mention books here, and the reason I'm not going into them is for the same reasons I mentioned with this book, is that they're a little bit newer. So my honorable mentions are Iron Man 219. There has been some movement with this book. This is the first appearance of Ghost. I do think that it's very possible that if we do get a Thunderbolts team, Ghost is going to be a member of it, as well as Lawrence Fishburne's character, Goliath. I think that those two could become partners with General Ross and become members of this team. So this is something to definitely keep an eye out there. I've seen it in dollar bins before if you want to pick it up. The next one here is, this is Incredible Hulk 228. And this is the first appearance of Moonstone. Now, Moonstone is a character that was in the initial Thunderbolts team, and I think it's possible we could see her as a new character in the MCU. My only reservation with this particular book is that Moonstone was she's the second Moonstone as opposed to the first one, which is another book. And also her first appearance was her as a civilian before she got her powers in a different book. So I think for that reason, the market's going to be split with the books that people are speccing on. But with that being said, I do think Hulk 228 could be the one that most people go to because she is on the cover. All right, so those are my honorable mentions. So my first book for B tier villains that could become A tier if we see them in the MCU is going to be Journey into Mystery number 93. And this is the first appearance of Radioactive Man. Now, Radioactive Man isn't a character that is in the initial Thunderbolts team, but he is, however, a character that does become a part of the team later on as they evolve in the storyline. And not only that, he is also a member of a team called the Masters of Evil. Now, if you guys saw my MCU Spec video, I talked about that. I talked about how I think that it's very possible that we go from the Thunderbolts to the Masters of Evil. That could be the long-term plan that Feige is setting up. And one of the original members of that Masters of Evil team is Radioactive Man. So this is a book that I think is really interesting. It has a lot of things going for it. It's an old Silver Age key, Journey into Mystery 93, 1965, I believe it is. It is an appearance of a vintage B villain, Radioactive Man, who later joins the Masters of Evil and then later joins the Thunderbolts. And on top of that, he's an Asian character. So I think that anytime Marvel can do characters that are, diverse backgrounds and things like that, they're going to want to try to do that because they want to have that diversity. They want to have the broad audience. So I think that this is a really interesting book to take a look at. And I've definitely seen this at pretty good deals. It's not super, super cheap. You have to be patient with this one, but it's definitely one that you can find. And I don't personally own it, but I definitely have my eye on it. All right, moving on. The next book I have here is Strange Tales 141, and this is the first appearance of a character called the Fixer. Now, the Fixer is a character that was in the initial Thunderbolts team, and he kind of flounders a little bit throughout the Marvel Universe. He's never really been that sort of main villain, but one thing that I do like about the Fixer in general for him showing up is that he's been used in recent storylines, most specifically in the Punisher run that's currently out there. So we know that I'm of the opinion that if you're a character that's being used in the current storylines, that means that Marvel is thinking about you. And I do believe that these teams kind of talk a little bit. We know that Feige is one of the lead creatives now for all of Marvel. So I do think that he has a hand in what characters are being used in the books because they want all of this stuff to service each other. The video games, the books, the movies, they want to have the pop culture and the consciousness surrounding characters that they're going to be using in these movies so that they all feed into each other. Because, when people see the movies, they're interested in the books and they want to see the characters that are in the movies in those books as well, and vice versa. So this is the first appearance of the Fixer, Strange Tales 141, and I've definitely seen this book for cheap. This to me is always one when I go into the Strange Tales bins and I'm flipping through and I'm hoping to find some of the cool ones like First Doctor Strange or First Dormammu or whatever it is. This is that one that I always end up seeing, where it's the one that's been left over after all the good stuff has been picked. So this is definitely out there. Could be interesting. First appearance of the Fixer. All right, moving on. The next one I have here is Strange Tales 123, and I already talked about this in my intro, and this is the first appearance of Beetle. Now, this is the one that I think is one of the more exciting ones because Beetle, this is a vintage sort of first appearance character, a vintage character who's been used in Marvel for a very long time, all throughout the, Bronze Age, Silver Age, and Copper and somewhat Modern Age. He does later become a different character. They've made him a female character or whatever. I haven't really paid much attention to that story, but to me, of the B tier villain characters, I've seen him. You've seen him a lot. You've seen him a lot in notable books, and he is one of the original members of the Thunderbolts. So this is one that's really interesting to me. If we do see the Feige trying to put together the original Thunderbolts team, I do think that Beetle is an important character to that. He later becomes called Mach 1 in that Thunderbolts team. So this is one that I definitely would keep an eye out for. So now I'm going to move to two other books that, these past three are ones that are kind of rooted in the older Thunderbolts teams, and this one is going to be something that's a little more Spec, seeing where we are in the MCU, and that is going to be Tales to Astonish number 90. Now, what is the significance of this one? This is the first appearance of Abomination. And if you guys remember, I'm sure you do, Abomination was in the second Marvel movie ever made, which is The Incredible Hulk. And he was played by Tim Roth. And since that movie, we haven't seen him back. But if you remember from the end, he didn't die. He just was sort of apprehended by General Ross. And when I think about it, if General Ross is going to be putting together this team, it seems clear to me that he's going to have Abomination in his back pocket as a villain or a henchman that he can use in his Thunderbolts team. Now, it is in canon to the comic book that when General Ross becomes the Red Hulk, he kills Abomination. But I'm not sure if they're going to do that storyline in the MCU, because I think that Feige's going to want to take, the players he has on the board currently, and he's going to try to hodgepodge the Thunderbolts team as best he can from what he already has, from the chips that are on the table. He might include a couple new characters like Beetle or Moonstone or things like that, but I don't think he's got the bandwidth to do origin stories for all these characters. I think he's going to want to take what's already out there. So Abomination to me is a character that's interesting, and his first appearance is in Tales to Astonish 90. Now, the only drawback to this book I see is that, unfortunately, Abomination is not on the cover, which is too bad, because the next book, which is Abomination's second appearance, number 91, is this cover right here. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. And to me, if this cover was the first appearance for Abomination, I think this book would be so much more valuable. Sadly, it is number 90 that is his first appearance, and it's not a cameo. It's actually his origin and all that stuff. So this could be the second winter book that comes out, in the market. If we see Abomination again, it's really interesting, because both these books, generally speaking, this one's a little pricier, but generally speaking, they sell for around the same price. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that this cover is just so much more appealing when it comes to the collectability of Abomination. So this is kind of a twofer with this book. I would definitely keep my eye on both. All right, moving on to my last pick here, similar to Abomination. This is going to be Tales to Astonish number 62. And for those who don't know, this is the first cameo appearance of the leader. And with that said, Tales to Astonish 63 is the first full appearance of the leader. Now, it's funny to me because we actually have the leader already in the MCU. And that was played by Tim Blake Nelson. And they kind of left it at a cliffhanger where, he kind of got that misshapen head with, I forget what it was. I think it was like the Hulk's blood that spilled on him or something like that, or he injected something weird. And they kind of left it at this, inferring that we were going to get, the leader in the next Hulk, but, plans change and things haven't worked out with that. And everyone has kind of wondered, like, where is Tim Blake Nelson's character? Like, what's going on with him? And I believe that Feige is probably still thinking about him. I have a feeling that it probably bothers Feige that Abomination and Leader are still on the board, and he probably has wanted to do something with them, but he's waiting for the right time. And I really think that with the Thunderbolts, with General Ross, who has connections to all these characters, I think this is the time that he's going to pull them out. So I could definitely see him, making a team of Abomination, Leader, Ghost, Taskmaster, and that could and Baron Zemo, and that could be his Thunderbolts team right off the bat. So this is a book that I think is really interesting. Generally, I feel like this book is undervalued for being a first appearance of, I'm calling Leader a B villain character here, but I guess you can call him a B+ or an A- tier villain because, people know him. He's one of the Hulk's biggest villains. But I think what this book, again, has going against it is that Leader is not on the cover. And in fact, in Tales to Astonish number 64 is the first cover appearance of Leader. So that could be a book to keep your eye on. But this is something that I think generally is undervalued and could have a lot of potential if we do see the Leader back into the mix with the MCU and the Thunderbolts. So that is my 5 picks for B villain characters that I think could become A tier if we see them in the MCU. And the 5 books I talked about happen to be all tied and connected in some way or some manner to the Thunderbolts, which I definitely think is coming to the MCU. So you never know, we might see some of these characters. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought. Do you think some of these characters could be coming in the MCU? Do you think that Feige's going to go with the original Thunderbolts team, or do you think he's going to do kind of a different mix of a Thunderbolts team? Let me know, and I will see you in the next video.